art style is mixing a little bit of traditional painting methods with like a little urban art flair and bright colors. I think it's a way of expressing yourself to the community, and especially through public art like this, putting a little color into the community. It helps tell a story of the community. It helps have a sense of pride in the area. A lot of us live in the area, so you're contributing to the growth and belonging of your own backyard. We all share things in common, and I try to show that in a fun, colorful way, kind of through a lot of my artwork. My name is Francisco Gonzalez. I go by Frankie G.
Hi, my name is Megan Orlando. I'm the Emergency Management Specialist for the Office of Emergency Management in St. Petersburg, Florida. I'm here to talk about Alert Pinellas. Alert Pinellas is our emergency notification tool. That's how we get our emergency notifications out to the public and to our communities. Alert Pinellas can distribute a wide range of notifications, watches and warnings for tornadoes, storm surge, high winds. It can alert for shelter evacuations, for boil water notices, and hazardous materials incidents. You can register for Alert Pinellas using the link on the screen. You can register with your email, with text messages, or to receive a phone call. Pro tip, you can add the Alert Pinellas phone number to your phone, so that way you know when you're getting a call from us. Opting into Alert Pinellas is the best way to ensure that you receive emergency notifications from your partners at the City of St. Pete and Pinellas County. Every storm creates its unique hazards, so follow city socials to stay up to date on the most important information.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Housing, Land Use, and Transportation Committee meeting. Will the clerk please call roll?
Floyd.
Here.
Harding.
Here.
Driscoll.
Here.
Gabbard. Givens.
Wonderful. Committee members, we have an agenda before us. Do I have a motion for approval?
Move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We also have the approval of the April 9th, 2026 minutes before us. Do I have a motion for approval?
Move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes as well. We're on to our new business for today. We're going to start with a discussion on neighborhood traffic calming. This is an item that we've had one discussion on. It was my item. You can see my new business item in here. And I really enjoyed the last discussion, and I think today will be the same. That's me being optimistic, so I'll let Evan take it away.
All right, thank you, Council. We'll try not to let you down on that.
I didn't mean to set expectations too high right away.
That's fine. I think we can meet them.
Yeah.
So Cheryl Stacks, our transportation manager, is with me today. David Hegarty was here the first time. He's our neighborhood transportation coordinator. He's really the first line on this, manages the program from day to day. But he wasn't able to join us today, so just the two of us. And you can go ahead and advance it. One more slide. Too far.
Too far.
Right there.
Sorry.
Okay, so as mentioned, we were here in November 2025. There was a typo. We were not here in November 2026, so that's been corrected. And during that presentation, we went over the status of the neighborhood traffic program. You know, it's been in existence for well over 20 years now. And we had some proposed changes to the neighborhood traffic calming policy. I appreciate the way that the referral was written, that essentially it was a successful program, but we could make it more successful, potentially with some changes, and so we've gone through that process. And then third, we alluded to potential future changes to the comprehensive plan that would consider allowing vertical traffic calming measures on our more major roadways. So we have more specifics on that today that we can share with you and see if the committee is comfortable with moving forward with that. So we have this divided into two parts. I'm going to cover the first part on just the neighborhood traffic calming update, and then Cheryl will cover the comprehensive plan potential changes. So first off, we did include in the backup a revised department policy on traffic calming that incorporated changes that we talked about before and included feedback from committee members. I would like to thank Ben James in the City Attorney's Office who helped us with that and provided some good suggestions that we incorporated therein. So right after the meeting, based on the consensus and it being a department policy, we implemented some of the changes, and then others we implemented later when we made the written changes to the policy. A couple of the immediate changes that we made was updating the speed criteria for qualifying. And then we worked on other changes to bring that forward. And those additional changes and placing it into the written policy became effective on April 20th of this year. So as a reminder, the threshold to qualify for traffic calming previously and for a long time was 35 mile an hour, 85th percentile speed. That means that 85% of drivers would be under that threshold. 15% of drivers were kind of in that excessive speeding category. And based on our discussion, we changed that to 8 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. And again, further suggestion from the chair at the meeting, we also kept in there the 35 mile an hour threshold. So it's whichever's easiest to meet, and therefore neighborhoods that have a 30 mile an hour speed limit, it wouldn't become harder to attain traffic calming. So it made it a little bit easier to attain it in the 25 and the 20 zones, and it kept it the same for the 30. Also, we talked about making the volume criteria to be a little bit more precise and prescriptive, less on engineering judgment and more on data. We don't see too many of those, so that doesn't come into play nearly as often, but it's still a good change to make. On the petition, we talked quite a bit about the petition and some of the changes that we made is that in the past, we allowed people to put, yes, I support traffic calming, but don't put a device in front of my house. And that made it difficult for us for proper placement. Oftentimes what we do is we try to place the device, the hump or the table, right on a property line. It does come with signage, and then by putting it on the property line, it's not right out somebody's front window or front door. And then, so if we had one person said no on either side of where we want to put it, then we might have to place the device further away and couldn't get our proper spacing. So we changed that, and now the petition will say either yes or no. You're either in favor of traffic calming and you're willing to work with us for placement where it needs to go, or you're just totally against it. Also, we added the text that warning signs do come with the devices. So in the past, people might have had a misperception that traffic calming humps or tables would just be a device in the roadway, but we do require warning signs with that. So the petition is a little bit more forthcoming on exactly what to expect. Also, we changed and solidified removal of traffic calming devices. It takes a lot of time, effort, public money to go through the installation process. So we wanted to make sure that we set some pretty strict standards for removal. And I can tell you that once the devices go in, usually we do not get requests for removal. So what kind of changes have we seen since November? We have almost 6 months under our belt since then. We've had typically, as I just alluded to, we haven't had any cut-through traffic requests. But we have had, since that time, 44 speeding-related requests come in. So you can kind of get a sense of the volume that we typically have, which is quite high. And maybe of most interest would be how have the changes manifested in the results of how we respond to those requests. And here you can see that we've said yes to 16 requests out of 44, that it met the speed criteria, which allow us to go to the next petition phase. And if we would have been under the old requirements, we would have only been able to say yes to 11. So we've been able to say yes to 5 additional requests in the last 5 to 6 months. So about 1 per month. And that gives us a modest increase, which is what we talked about, what we expected. That's come to fruition. And so it's not causing a large burden. But we did propose, and so far in the budget that we've advanced to council and council received positively at the workshop, we did increase our budget by $50,000 for traffic calming, and that should cover the increase that we're seeing. And I'll turn part 2 over to Cheryl.
Thanks, Evan. As we mentioned in November, the city's comprehensive plan has language that limits the use of vertical traffic calming devices and only allows them on local and neighborhood collector streets. The Florida Department of Transportation has initiated an effort to allow them on roads with a higher classification, especially using them for raised crosswalks, and they've developed a modified developmental standard to do that. And in fact, they suggested that we install them on 5th Avenue North when that road was resurfaced recently. And here's what they had presented to us. 2 raised crosswalks just west of the driveway for St. Anthony's. And due to the restrictions in the comprehensive plan, they ultimately kept the crosswalk at street level and enhanced them only with taking the rapid flashing beacons. The latest edition of the FDOT design standards, which are applicable on state highways but often useful for us on local systems, now include standards associated with raised crosswalks and other vertical traffic calming elements. They have a straight linear profile and do not include devices like speed humps that have more of a parabolic, more abrupt profile. They include 2 options for the profile, which varies based on the design speed that you're trying to achieve. There's one that's a sharper slope, that's a 1 to 12, and that's usually what's in our current city design standards for speed tables on neighborhood collector streets, for example. But the new one, the other profile, which is new, is the 1 to 20 slope, and that's meant for use on streets with a higher design speed, typically 30 to 35 miles an hour, and it's not meant to be an abrupt device at all. The length of the table can vary, but it should be greater than or equal to the axle spacing of your design vehicle so that you don't damage the undercarriage of those vehicles. And so this helps us make sure that we won't cause damage to like our fire trucks, for example, and longer, or PSTA buses. And finally, the FDOT guidance provides that the speed tables or raised crosswalks should be installed at an average of about 500 feet apart to achieve speeds of about 35 miles an hour. So this is what the FDOT, the illustration in the FDOT design manual, you'll see the table includes both profiles. On the left side, the little table on the left, it notes 1 to 12 and 1 to 20, and the design speeds that are typically encouraged and correspond with those options. And then you'll see some dimensioning associated with the length of the table. It's typically a total of 12 feet, and then when it's used as a raised crosswalk, the markings for the crosswalk would cover about 10 feet of that 12-foot table. One example that we've looked to and encouraged some of our most critical stakeholders to review would be this installation of raised crosswalks in Orlando. This is on Orange Blossom Trail just south of Camping World Stadium. The FDOT installed 6 raised crosswalks as a part of a corridor improvement project. The spacing between the raised crosswalks varies, but is between 350 and 1,000 feet. And some of that variability is associated with the need to provide the crosswalks in meaningful locations tied to transit, those kinds of things. So in this instance here, they're looking at providing raised crosswalks where they needed crosswalks, not necessarily trying to achieve a certain consistent speed across the entire corridor. So that's why you see a pretty good variability between 350 and 1,000 feet apart. The posted speed limit here is 30 miles an hour. So this, thinking about which streets may be most appropriate for these treatments, if we were to allow the FDOT design criteria, we figure that the streets highlighted in yellow and orange on the map here would represent those streets. These are streets that through the Complete Streets Implementation Plan were identified as ones where we would be working toward design speeds that are either 30 or 35 miles an hour. They include several state roads like 4th Street and 5th Avenue North. They include county roads like 49th Street and 38th Avenue North, and several city streets such as 22nd Avenue North, 37th Street, and 9th Avenue North. As noted in November, we felt it would be appropriate to put a framework around the use of the vertical traffic calming devices to make sure that they're applied in appropriate locations and with due care. We'd recommend following the FDOT design standards on all roads in the city, which would have us limit the use of these devices to roads with speed limits of 40 miles an hour or less, or design speeds of 35 miles an hour or less. We'd use dimensions from our critical stakeholders, like our fire rescue and PSTA, and the development of our standards. Since our November meeting, we've actively engaged with some critical stakeholders to obtain their feedback and learn more about their vehicle specifics and any concerns that they may have about the potential change. We found that the wheelbase of the largest fire apparatus is 271 inches, so we'll need to use that table length. That's a little longer than 12 feet, it's about 12 and a half feet in order to accommodate our fire rescue vehicles, so we'll write that into our standards. We also learned that PSTA vehicles have a rear approach angle of 8.3 degrees, but that's well accommodated with a 1 to 20 slope and a 6-inch curb height. So in all, we found that the stakeholders did not have significant concerns, provided that we adopted city standards consistent with the FDOT and provided accommodation for their vehicles. So very specifically, looking at the comprehensive plan, with traffic calming, we look to advance a text amendment that would change language within 2 sections of the transportation element. They are the sections associated with the transportation system safety and the section associated with neighborhood preservation. It's the language in the neighborhood preservation section that includes the current limitation on vertical traffic calming. And it was included at a time when the city's traffic calming program was essentially new. Now that it's matured, we'd recommend that this language is removed. Other language associated with neighborhood traffic calming would remain. And that allows us to continue to administer the program as currently provided under the updated policy as Evan described. Which also includes the volume criteria, which was kind of one of the concerns with putting it in neighborhood preservation, was a concern for cut-through traffic. But now we've seen that we don't get those types of requests, and we did put in very specific criteria to address that. So we feel like it's reasonable for us to go ahead and pull it out of that section at this point in time. And then we would recommend that the language is added under the transportation safety section as noted in red, consistent with that framework that was presented. It would make it a permissible option to use the vertical devices. We're really envisioning this as an approach to let us add a tool in our safety toolkit. And it means that it provides a means to really moderate traffic speeds on corridors, which helps us reduce the frequency and severity of traffic crashes. And when used as raised crosswalks, they'll provide additional visibility for our most vulnerable roadway users like bicyclists and pedestrians. And with that, I think we're available to take any questions.
Yeah,
and
if
hear
we could,
discussion.
if we could divide this into two things a little bit, if you don't mind. One is, love to have your feedback and see if the committee's supportive of all the changes that we've made based on our discussions to the traffic calming policy and program. And then if we could also talk maybe a little bit separately about the comprehensive plan changes. If we don't move forward with the comprehensive plan changes, I think we've made meaningful improvements to the program already. And if you're comfortable with both, then we would not mind having an endorsement from the committee that would then move us forward, because changing the comprehensive plan has several steps. Last step would be back with full council, but there's other interim steps along the way. So they're interrelated, but to the point that we could separate them a little bit, that would be appreciated. And take any questions you have and feedback now.
All right. Councilmember Harding.
Thank you, Chair. Evan, actually, I'll start with that. We walk through why you would want to change both if the easier gets us to where we want to go? How does it help us, or why would you want to go that road?
Sure. So the way that the program is set up now, we can make improvements inside neighborhoods, but on the roads that tend to, be the separator between neighborhoods, or the medium speed streets that we have in the city, we're not allowed to do any traffic calming. We're not allowed to do any raised crosswalks. We have in mind, we might want to do a raised crosswalk for the Trails Crossing master plan, which would be across First Avenue North at 18th Street.
Right.
This would allow us to do that, and because the profile is gentle and not abrupt like a speed hump, we can still process high volume of traffic, have them slow down to 30 miles an hour, so that we can have a raised crosswalk where it just would enhance the crossing that much more. We'd be able to say yes in the future, instead of having the parking lots across Fifth Avenue for the hospital employees to have to get across Fifth Avenue, and the speeds are higher. We could provide safer accommodation there. So I don't think we'd have a huge proliferation if we changed the comprehensive plan, but it would give us more tools to be able to make changes. For example, on Pinellas Point Drive in South St. Petersburg, we're not allowed to do any vertical traffic calming, and we have constant requests about speeding, because there's a very long stretch with no stop signs, no traffic signals, and we can't put in stop signs for traffic calming. So this would allow us something there. So we have a good program, but we have limitations to only inside neighborhoods and on very slow speed streets already. So it would just, if we make the comprehensive plan change, it would help us be able to make changes citywide where appropriate.
So just to be clear, you're in support of changing both?
Yes.
Okay, you have my support as well. And thank you very much. You both made that very comprehensive yet digestible. Very much appreciate the effort and the willingness to backwards engineer that into common speak. Just to clarify, This is not just about pedestrian crosswalks. This is about traffic itself. So you're also addressing car-on-car crashes, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, the comprehensive plan right now allows for some horizontal traffic calming on these streets, but with our constrained rights-of-way, it really isn't a practical option for us, because then we're into lane repurposing or other things which have been made more difficult with new state legislation as well. So our usual tools that we do have available to us are very, very, very difficult. So this one would add one more tool, but we would definitely want to be judicious about it and be careful and use it for the purpose of, again, moderating speeds and making it contextually appropriate for the roadways that they're on. And I would note, too, the FDOT standards don't allow this on roads like 45 miles an hour and above, so we would follow that guidance, too. So it keeps speeds appropriate for the land use context is what we're trying to achieve here.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you.
Great. Go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for all of this. It's really good work. And I want to ask about cut-through traffic. And although we're not seeing that concern raised now, does this take that out completely?
No,
I mean,
no.
what if it does pop up? What if, something changes and, because of some new development or, any number of things, I could see a scenario where people would start complaining about cut-through traffic and want something done about it. So I don't want to keep us from being able to address those kinds of issues.
Yeah, so I'll start and see if Cheryl wants to add to it. We still can address that, and we just have a little bit more exact criteria for it. And also, when people are trying to cut through, they're trying to save time. So they're likely to be speeding also. And so if we have a complaint for speeding, that oftentimes it's also because of cut-through traffic. So I think that just the community is not coming forward with that very, very much, but we can still address it.
Okay.
I think I would add that for those roads that are most vulnerable to cut-through traffic, we probably already have traffic calming devices installed there now. There are a lot of these roads that over the years had some concerns, and now those speeding and the traffic calming is already there to kind of help address that. So there could potentially be some new ones, but then to Evan's point, now we have very specific criteria to help work toward addressing that too.
Mm-hmm. And then on slide 16, the OBT, the Orange Blossom Trail, I'm just laughing because I lived in Orlando for a long time.
As soon as you said OBT, I was like, she's been.
I was like, oh man, I did it. So it's just say, like, I don't know, that just came out. But, so the pedestrian hybrid beacons, what are those?
We have a few of those here in St. Petersburg too. They're an overhead beacon device. It's not a signal.
Yeah.
These are the ones that we have on a few of the trail crossings, including the trail crossing on 16th Street by John Canfield. And it does it has a sequence that has an alternating red and a solid red for a period of time. So our rectangular rapid flashing beacons only flash yellow, which has a different kind of statutory requirement for the motorist to do versus when you have a solid red or a flashing red. So this one does provide an enhancement on that, but again, there's also our overhead, and those are quite expensive.
What if you're in a car and you're stopped at one of those and it's solid?
Yes.
Then that makes sense. What's the flashing red?
So the flashing red is kind of meant to emulate what's available at railroad signals, and typically the requirement for the motorist is to stop, double check that it's clear, and if it's clear, then the motorist can proceed through the crosswalk. But there is a requirement to stop first, hence the red indication. Double check, make sure it's
Okay.
clear, and then you can proceed. On the red ball that's steady, you have to stay there the whole time
Right.
it's red.
So solid red is like a traffic stoplight.
Correct.
Flashing red is like a stop sign.
Yes,
Is that the best way to remember?
yes, yes, indeed.
Hopefully I've been doing it right. I don't, I'm like, it's flashing. Can I go? Yeah.
Chances
So-
are, if you're in error, it means that you just stopped longer than you needed to stop, which is a better safety approach.
Indeed. But I look around and I feel like the other cars are kind of wondering the same thing. So, yeah, thanks for clarifying that. All right, thank you.
Yeah, there's explainers on some of them, aren't there? But I know exactly what you're talking about. My father-in-law is from England, and he came to visit, and he was driving, and he said he got to one of those, and he said, "Oh my God, if a red light means stop, then a flashing red light means you better stop right now." That was what he thought in his mind, yeah. So I had a good laugh over that with him. Yeah, Councilmember Givens.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much, Evan and Cheryl. Evan, you kind of alluded to something that I wanted to address a little bit more in depth, and that is the reason why we need traffic calming measures. Speeding. Why do people speed? And I think it's probably due to congestion. A lot of times you're trying to get from one intersection to the next intersection because you've already been sitting in traffic for so long, and you're just trying to make it from point A to point Z. So can we talk a little bit about how this comprehensive plan can address tools like AI, utilizing those measures to help figure out, the timing of traffic signals and figuring out how we can communicate between our city signal system and also law enforcement to identify those folks who are speeding so that we don't have to spend money on implementing things like raised crosswalks or whatnot. I'm just wondering how we can utilize those smart tools that we have at our disposal.
Sure. So I think a lot of what you're talking, excuse me, a lot of what you're talking about is the future, but also it's now, because we have the grant with FDOT to implement smart signals in West St. Pete. We are taking some efforts to try to expand that with being able to upgrade the controllers that are in the signal boxes to allow for that. And I believe that in the not too distant future, we're going to see more and more AI in traffic signals that aren't necessarily on a pre-programmed schedule, but adapt to real traffic, and that will help traffic flow better, but it'll also help with the safety. So we're definitely working in that direction, and I know that some people get frustrated when they're in traffic and they try to make up time, but other people just have a bad habit of driving way too fast.
I agree. I know I think the city of Pittsburgh, they have the Surtec AI system, and it helped them to reduce travel times by about 25% and wait times by about 40%. So I'd be curious to see what other cities similar to St. Petersburg in size are doing to help with their traffic congestion issues, and also smart traffic calming measures that we can try to utilize here now rather than later. I understand what we're doing in West St. Pete, but I figured if we're going to talk about the plan now, let's make sure the plan addresses in the long term and in the future, like you said, the citywide approach to how we can implement such measures across town. The other thing that I want to talk about, in addition to the scope of the plan, was just rolling it out, communicating how this plan is going to help, because in neighborhood association meetings, just out in the city, I always hear all the time, we've got issues with traffic. I certainly think there's some great strategies that we can utilize, including social media, workshops, town halls, those sort of educational campaigns to communicate, again, what you all are doing behind the scenes, because I think it's great work. I just think it can be communicated a little bit better than what we do. And maybe we utilize St. Pete Police to help with that. I don't know, but there's, I think, some work that needs to be done in making sure the city knows what work is being done here behind the scenes to help with these issues that we're dealing with on the road.
Yeah, thank you for that. We certainly spend a lot of time out in the associations. We can look for new ways to reach out, and since we're going through some changes now, it gives us that opportunity to share more information, since it's a topic of the moment.
Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'll touch on something you mentioned, Councilmember Givens. To get clarity first, the comprehensive plan allows for us to do the smart signal stuff already, so there's not changes necessarily required for us to continue to do that work. And then I'm glad to hear about Pittsburgh. That's interesting. I'll look into that example. But when it comes to traffic congestion, there's like a common example when you're learning like algorithmic education that I've done in the past, and it's that humans are quite efficient already on their own. Obviously, traffic signals can be changed, but if we implemented like a fully automated system, the main limitation to lowering traffic congestion is the size of space you need to travel per person if you're in a vehicle. Because cars take up a lot of space, and that's why like mass transit is like the ultimate traffic congestion reducer, is because the amount of space per person to travel is a lot lower, and we run into like physical barriers. So it only has so much limits, or it only has so much that it can do for us if we like optimize the roadway, which we absolutely should do. But if we really want to knock out traffic congestion, it's mass transit. Nothing works better than that. Thank you for the presentation. I'll break it down into the two things that we had presented. So first, the changes, all of that looks good. It's simple enough. I'm glad to see the reasonable increase in qualifying roadways. I think the thing that I get the most comments on previously was neighborhoods that just missed being able to qualify. Now a lot of them are going to qualify. Of course, there will be a new category of people who just miss, but I think it's a little more justifiable nowadays to say, hey, like on your lower speed road, we made it easier for you to qualify and you were able to, and if people are exceeding that, it's even, or if people are not meeting that threshold on your road, it's still a safer roadway than would have been otherwise. And so anyway, the first part all looks good. The second part also all looks good, although I have one question, I guess, and it's sort of the relation of the two, the comprehensive plan changes and the speed hump request process. And that is, you know, when you and I have talked about this, it's always been about where we know there are problems, or where we've not been able to do it, like Fifth Avenue North. And you mentioned, was it Pinellas Point Drive? Mm-hmm. That one, as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's so true. What about like a neighborhood that like knows that their main collector road has a problem like this? I'll give you the example that I get contacted about from constituents is 30th Avenue North, further west, has a lot of speeding problems. And yeah, it's really wide and it looks very welcoming to go fast on there. And it's just a neighborhood road. Like, have you contemplated a process for a neighborhood or a community group or an individual to ask for us to take a look at the possibility of doing this in the future? Or is that maybe something we want to hold off on until we actually were to do a comprehensive plan change?
Well, if it's one of the roads we're not allowed to do it on, we'd have to wait for the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, of course,
change.
yeah.
But that's a good thing to explore a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I think this is specifically where Ben and kind of legal helped us out mm-hmm. with the policy, because I would say for Pinellas Point Drive, we'd go through the petition process.
Yeah.
Now for other roads, maybe like Fifth Avenue North, mm-hmm. we would talk to St. Anthony's, but we don't need a petition.
No, it's not residential.
And so one of the things that Ben made sure of is that the city has the ability to make these decisions outside the petition process mm-hmm. if we believe it's in the public's best interest. Mm-hmm. So it would just depend. I think we would see more outside the petition process, like mm-hmm. Trails Crossing Master Plan.
Mm-hmm. Of course, yeah.
We're going to come to council and see if you all support what we are looking forward to doing. If that's there, we would do that without the petition.
So, but you do still imagine like the petition process existing for this as well?
Yes, probably it would for 30th Avenue North,
okay.
Pinellas Point Drive.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious as to if you were imagining like a neighbor could request a speed study in the area and then go through the petition process, same as with the other stuff. And so if that's the case, then that sounds good. And I am sure I know of at least one place that will have that conversation. But yeah, I also appreciate that there will be places that we identify, especially like you mentioned, the places that you listed are not necessarily in neighborhoods, but they're important places where we would feel strongly that it's necessary. Okay. Other than that, I don't want to sidetrack us, so I'm going to sort of muse this and get your feedback very quickly. I would love to have more discussions about this, but separate from this item, I think I'm optimistic that would we need a motion to move this forward, the comprehensive plan changes?
I would,
I'm assuming
it would
that
at your
would be
discretion,
safest.
but yes, I think that if
Yeah.
you would like city council to act on it, I
Yeah.
would provide a recommendation.
Okay, so if we do that and the original speed hump conversation's finished, then we can get this item checked off on the referral list. But I would love to have a discussion in the future more about 20 is plenty and just moving residential roads to 20 miles per hour. But I will do that in a separate item after you and I have had a discussion, is what I would say. But yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to make a motion that recommends we move forward the comprehensive plan changes through the required process, I know it doesn't go straight to council, but I would entertain that.
So moved.
All right. No comments. All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion passes. Thank you very much, Evan and Cheryl. I feel like this was even better than the first conversation, so I'm very grateful for it.
Thank you.
We have another item coming up, another exciting one, and we have about 40 minutes, 38 minutes to have a discussion on this. Thank you. We're having some items passed around right now that relate. We're going to have a discussion on an update on Yes in God's Backyard, YIGBY, which is a colloquial name for legislation that passed recently that the city supported, specifically the city's efforts to direct technical assistance to faith-based organizations, and a discussion on next steps. And we have the dream team in front of us of a whole different group of departments, really. So we have George Smith, Mark Van Loo, and David, whose last name is just leaving me right now. Even though he's the person that I know best right up here. David Thompson, yeah. Yeah. So this was my item. I put it in literally just so we could talk about it. There hadn't been an opportunity for council or a committee to get into what's next for us since the state legislation passed. And so that's what this is about. So I'll let y'all take it away.
Very good. Good morning, committee members, and thank you, council member or vice chair, for the opportunity to come before you to provide you with an update on Yes in God's Backyard, and specifically our initiative, the city's initiative, to provide support to faith organizations who are desirous of building, developing affordable housing on their land. We will start with David, who will give us a little background on legislative updates, and then Mark will tell us about the entity that has already started utilizing the program, and then I'll come back and share with you our specific efforts in supporting faith organizations.
All right, good morning. David Thompson, Director of Government Affairs. I snuck out of Blair, so it's nice to see everybody here. So, as George said, I'm just going to give a little background in the legislative process and where we go next. So, really, this path for YIGBY began back in 2020 with the passage of HB 1339, which at the time empowered local governments to do expedited housing affordability approvals for residential, commercial, and industrial use. The Live Local Act, the 1.0, helpful as we go through this. Live Local Act 1.0 in 2023 modified that provision, and it took out the residential component of where local governments could do this expedited process. And that's relevant because the overwhelming majority of the churches in St. Petersburg are on residentially zoned property with an institutional overlay. So that took all of those parcels out. And at this point, and when the bill changes, Palm Lake Christian Church in your district had already gotten underway. There were other churches who were interested in it, but the rug had kind of been pulled on for us. We could not approve projects in the same manner. And so this sparked a conversation in 2024 about how we could partner with our faith community to be a part of the affordable housing challenge that our community faces. And at Mayor Welch's direction, we and the administration began looking at potential solutions, which brought us to the national Yes in God's Backyard movement. And then with council support, we included that as part of our 2025 state legislative agenda and requested that the legislature create a framework for faith-based organizations to develop affordable housing. And in 2025, thanks to the support of our delegation, Representative Cross, Senator Rusan, and at the time, State Representative Vicky Lopez, who was the largest bill sponsor, that YIGB provision was signed into law as part of SB 1730, known as Live Local 3.0. And we worked really closely at the time with the bill sponsor in the Florida League of Cities to ensure that this was a local government empowerment bill, not a preemption bill. And with council's action, St. Pete became the first city to adopt the Yes in God's Backyard ordinance or provision into law. This takes us to 2026. This year, during the regular legislative session, the legislature passed Live Local 4.0, which is HB 1389. And this bill created a second alternative pathway for Yes in God's Backyard projects. But this one is mandatory, and you can kind of interpret that in many ways as St. Pete and Council has been ahead of the curve when it comes to taking action on affordable housing. You saw that with HB 1339, and then they're like, you know what, not enough of you all are doing it, now everybody has to do it. It's a bit similar with the Yes in God's Backyard. We were the first and one of the few state or cities and counties to adopt the Yes in God's Backyard. States said, well, not enough of you are doing this optional pathway, we're going to create a mandatory pathway for these projects to go through. So I'm going to talk through those differences briefly. Under the Live Local 3.0 YIGB, and both of these still exist, so there's two pathways, but it's relevant just for you all to know the differences. Under the Live Local 3.0 version, this eligibility as a religious institution needed to own the land, and it had to contain a house of worship or be a contiguous parcel. Under the new provision, the religious institution has to own the land for at least 10 years. The property itself must be greater than 3 acres, and the house of worship must stay active through the duration of the development. Mark can talk about why that might be a complicating factor, but that's kind of a separate piece of that. And then for housing types, really any type of housing is allowed under the 2023, the Live Local 3.0 that you all as council adopted, whether it be single family, townhomes, multifamily, and they can be for rental or for ownership, which is something we know that you all of council have prioritized. Under the new mandatory pathway, it really is limited to multifamily and mixed use. And then for affordability, under the Live Local 3.0, the 2020, the previous version, the requirement was 10% of the units be affordable to under 120 AMI. Obviously, we can change that or make different requirements for any given project, but that flexibility is given to the city. And under the mandatory alternative, more than 40% has to be affordable for those under 120% AMI. And then there's some additional provisions on under the statute that you all adopted, we have greater flexibility on use, height, FAR, those types of things. The new version preempts us. While it may sound like it's easier for someone to use the new option, there are a lot of difficulties with that of 10 plus years of ownership for the church, greater than 3 acres, the fact that as it looks like it's written, you would not be able to sell those parcels, or it'd make it complicated to do home ownership opportunities. So our option that we advocated for and that you all as council passed into ordinance still will likely be the more likely one that people will be used, just as the way that this works out in real time. And then just for y'all's awareness moving forward, we obviously did a lot of work at the state level. There's still some opportunities at the federal and national level. So this year, my former boss, Congresswoman Shontel Brown, introduced the federal Yes in God's Backyard Act. And that looks at it from a different pathway. It offers technical assistance to faith-based organizations to help them do that, which George and Mark are going to talk about how we're doing that, provides technical assistance to local governments, and it would establish a grant program for communities that adopt these policies to remove barriers to affordable housing. So that has not moved out of its first committee, but that's an opportunity for us to continue and engage and actually get some funding behind this YIGB movement here. So that's all I have to share.
Good morning, everybody. Mark Van Loo, Assistant Director of Housing and Community Development. So David did a great job of outlining how we got to where we are today. I think the only thing I would add is that, as David pointed out, the recent mandatory version of YIGB was really brought about by the state because I don't think they felt enough cities and counties around the state were adopting the local optional version. So they created, in places where there is no optional program in place, this does put a mandate in place, but with some pretty hefty restrictions. And as David pointed out, because of our optional version that we adopted, which is more flexible than the mandated version, I really don't see why any developer would choose to go with the mandated version. Because of the requirement of, say, having to have more than 3 acres of land. One little tweak is what the statute says is that the faith owner has to have had an active house of worship for at least 10 years prior to applying for the housing project, and then that house of worship must continue to operate after the project, but they don't specify how would you enforce that, for how long does that need to happen, et cetera, et cetera. So I really don't anticipate anybody thinking that that's a better way to go, given our already in place optional version. I wanted to point out that, kind of give you an idea of what does that mean for St. Pete. So I went on the Pinellas County Assessor's site and did some research, and according to my research on faith-owned properties in the city, I found that there are about 260 qualifying parcels in the city of St. Pete that are faith-owned sites, that the total area of all of those sites together is 501 acres. If you were to be able to put the full 82 unit per acre live local max density on that 501 acres, it would translate to about 41,000 housing units total. Now, we're never going to see that because not all of these sites would be, it wouldn't be possible on some of these sites to do housing in addition to what's already there. And certainly not everybody's gonna do this, but I just wanted you to understand the potential. And of those 260 parcels, about 45 of those parcels are greater than 3 acres and would qualify under this new mandated law. So I would estimate just informally that, if we see 20%, 25% of the potential sites eventually doing something with this, would probably be, about the most we would see, would be my guess, based on those who would have interest and those where the sites would even be possible to think about a housing project. So some of the projects that have had some legs, obviously the Palm Lake Urban Sanctuary, which predated YIGB and really came in under HB 1339.